Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Office Hours with the Professor. As always, I'm your host, William the Professor Collis. And we're going to do things differently once again this week on Office Hours. How so? Well, we're going to start this week's Office Hours with me giving you the letter grade for our story, A+. So hopefully that gets you interested right there. This is such a big event for games and gaming that straight out of the gate, there's no need to mess around. I can just come right out and say this is an A+ news story. So big deal. Hope you're interested. But we're also doing things a little bit differently on this week's Office Hours because this is a news story that is slightly older than a week. I normally like to cover news stories that, are sort of within the past 7 days. This is a little bit older, and I wanted to wait to cover it, I should say, because I really wanted to think about what a novel take on this news story would be. And so I think I have one now, or at least one that's a little bit interesting or different. And that's why I feel ready to discuss this. So what is this big news story that gets an automatic A+, and that I wanted to spend a week thinking about how to talk about? Well, the answer is Epic Games financing. In case you didn't hear, Epic Games raised about $2 billion, bringing it to a total post-money financing valuation of $31.5 billion. You might naturally be wondering, oh, that's incredible, $2 billion. There's a lot of great things they can do with that money. And yes, there is. But actually, that's not what I want to talk about in this week's Office Hours. I think, well, it's fun to speculate. The answer is $2 billion is so much money. Epic can just do bunches of things. The more interesting part of the question is the other number, the $31.5 billion number. Is that number right as a valuation of Epic Games? And what I want to do here is, rather than go into cash flows or revenue analysis, obviously that is one way and a correct way to value a company. I want to take a different approach here. I want to compare Epic Games to another business. I think anytime a business is worth tens of billions of dollars, the reality is the vision and the future has to matter a lot too. These are not companies that are going to justify those valuations in 1 to 2 years. These are multi-decade businesses that have to really succeed on long-term time horizons. And so the business that I want to compare Epic Games to for this sort of intuitive, abstract, off-the-cuff analysis is actually Airbnb. So you might say, well, William, Epic Games has nothing to do with Airbnb. And yeah, you're sort of right. They're very different companies. But if you actually sort of step back and look at them, I think there's some core similarities here. Both of them are actually very successful in what they do today. Airbnb has completely disrupted the hotel market, and Epic Games has produced arguably the most popular games engine ever with the Unreal Engine, and also owns two of the most popular games today, Rocket League and Fortnite, among many other successes. So they're both companies that have a lot of success in market today. But they're also companies with very ambitious visions. If you catch Epic Games on a good day, I'm sure they'll talk to you about the metaverse. And if you catch Airbnb on a good day, I think you'll likely hear something about the future of rented or owned space. So big, ambitious objectives for both businesses. And yet one business, Airbnb, is worth more than $100 billion in total market cap. And the other business, Epic Games, is worth $31.5 billion. So an Epic Games is worth a third of an Airbnb. Does it make sense that maybe the best video game engine of all time, plus two of today's most popular games, equals about 1/3 of an online booking platform? I would argue that doesn't quite pass my intuition test. I would argue that if you look at that benchmark and just this benchmark, because again, this is very focused, Epic Games feels a little undervalued, right? Which then raises the question, well, what's the fundamental difference between Epic Games and Airbnb, other than they're in completely different businesses, addressing completely different markets, blah, blah, blah? The answer is Airbnb is a public company. Epic Games isn't. That's the big takeaway I had from this news story. It just feels to me that Epic Games is leaving money on the table by maintaining itself as a private entity. That if Epic Games were fully traded in the public markets, they could have raised this $2 billion at a better valuation. And yes, Epic has a lot they need to do. They need to clearly address some challenges with their core business model. They need to prove out some of their new ventures like the Epic Games Store. But fundamentally, I think Epic is just intuitively leaving too much money on the table by staying private. And so I think as you expect Epic to grow, or if you expect Epic to grow, part of that growth will be coming to the public markets because the financial incentives just seem to point that way. So hopefully this was a fun little take on the news story. Hopefully it was fun to see something in games benchmarked to something outside of games. And as always, join me every week on Office Hours with the Professor for more fun discussions like this.